Welcome back. This is part 2 of the 2-part series with Doak Lambert when we had him in the studio there in Magnolia this week. This time you'll get to hear some tips and pointers that he has, as well as the question that everybody's been waiting for. Without further ado, we'll get back into the video. I'm sure you had a bunch of influences that you kind of molded your chant and stuff like that around. Who were your influential auctioneers when you were coming up?
Well, at the time when I was working for Andy and Trey, Ruben Reyes out of San Antonio was our preferred auctioneer. He's who we hired every time we could get him. And so I knew Ruben, had worked with him a lot, and traveled with him a lot, and Ruben helped me out a great deal. And I, like I said, I'd get to sell second auctioneer behind him sometimes on some big dispersals and whatnot, and he'd really help me out and say, you could have done this a little better, you took a little too long to sell this lot, or you sold that one too quick, or you missed that guy in the back row that wasn't bidding he was bidding kind of subtly. So Ruben really helped me a lot there at first, but then, man, that's a tough question because there's so many great auctioneers that I've either studied or gotten to know and had a relationship with. The legendary Ray Sims.
Oh, yeah.
I remember getting to meet him shortly after I had started selling a few sales. I met him at the National Auctioneers Association and went up and introduced myself to him. We visited a little bit, and I asked him, I said, Mr. Sims, if you had one piece of advice that you'd give a starting auctioneer, what would it be? And he said, son, he said, I've done this a long time, and he said, I've figured out, he said, that the faster you can sell them, the more money you're going to gather up. And, it almost didn't make sense at the time because I thought you really had to, talk about the cattle and preach about them and beg. And he changed my philosophy that day. It was a defining moment for me because I realized that, you create that sense of urgency. You do it quickly. You establish that momentum, and that's going to carry over and bring more dollars than if you drag it out. So, Ray had a big impact on me. I've gotten to know him since, and we've become friends. And another little bit of trivia, the auctioneer song that was popular back in the late 50s, early 60s,
right.
that was written about Ray Sims. It was written and sung by Leroy Van Dyke, who a lot of people don't know was second cousins with Ray Sims.
Right.
And so, anyway, he wrote that song about Ray, and that's another one of Ray's claims to fame. But, man, there's so many other. The late Stanley Stout, he was one of my instructors at Missouri Auction School. He had a big impact on me. I got to work with Stanley a few times, and again, he, like Ruben, he helped me out a lot. Current day, I guess if I was going to have my own sale, I'd probably hire Jim Birdwell. He'd be my favorite auctioneer today. Such a gentleman, such a professional. He has a great presence up in the block, and just a super reputation. Sells some of the biggest sales in the country. Gosh, I don't want to leave anybody out, but Steve Doran, I've watched and studied Steve sell a lot of sales, gotten to work with Steve, and every auctioneer you kind of pick up a few things that can help you improve your way of doing things, and Steve has helped me a lot. Kurt Rogers, Kurt had this booming voice, I called it an FM radio voice. Right. Don Green, Don sells a lot of horse sales.
Right.
Don's got such a way with the crowd. I mean, I think everybody feels like they're his best friend while he's selling. He just has a great interaction with the crowd. I've learned a lot from Don. Gerald Bowie still sells a lot of sales. Great purebred auctioneer, has helped me a lot. And again, I know I'm leaving out somebody, but those are the ones probably that just come to mind right off the top of my head.
Doak, we appreciate having you on the show. Got one more question. What's the craziest thing that's happened across the board that you thought at some point in time during it, man, if we can just get started with the sale, it'll be great?
That's a good question. There's been times when the PA's gone out and we couldn't figure it out. I guess one situation that stands out in my mind, we had a sale at one of those fancy hotels in San Antonio, Texas, and it was situated right on the loop there in San Antonio, the big loop that goes around the city. And somehow or another, and I'm sure if you investigate it, probably goes back to my inefficiencies, but somehow or another, we had an animal get out of the containment area and get out on the loop there, big 8-lane loop, right around Friday rush hour traffic.
Oh, no.
And it shut down the loop for like 5 or 6 miles.
Wow.
The newspapers came out and everything. We had a helicopter flying over. We made the front cover of the San Antonio Express newspaper the next day, about 6 of us. We finally got her captured, and we're dragging her on this trailer. Here we are right there on the front page. And while that was happening, it happened the day of the sale. I was sitting there thinking, we're never going to pull. We're toast. We're never going to pull this. But we did, and the sale was fine. But that was a harrowing experience, and one of many stories you could probably come up with in the auction business.
Exactly. Well, Doak, we appreciate you being on the show, and come back anytime. Hopefully we'll get to sit down and talk with you again about different aspects of the auction business as well as the cattle industry. Guys, thanks for watching. Until next week, thank you again for viewing the Ideal Video blog, and we'll see you back.